What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Patrick O'Malley. Patrick is an online educator from France who has sold over 15,000 online guitar courses and for almost 20 years has taught dozens of students to go from never touching a guitar before to being really accomplished players. I loved filming this episode with Patrick because, he brought out his guitar and started playing, and it really just took me back to before COVID times. It was such a blast into my memory, and it was so well needed. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen in. Now, before we get into the show, this episode is sponsored by Aunt Bertha. So I'm super stoked that Aunt Bertha agreed to come on and sponsor this podcast. Aunt Bertha is the leading referral platform for social services in America, connecting people seeking help and the verified social care providers that serve them with dignity and ease. They make it super easy for people to find social services in their communities, for nonprofits to coordinate their efforts, and for organizations to integrate social care into the work that they already do. Their huge platform is used in industries such as education, healthcare, and more. For the month of May, they joined the National Movement for Mental Health Awareness Month to work to destigmatize mental illness. Additionally, they continue to publish mental health resources on their website findhelp.org, which is a free online resource directory where anyone can search at any time for free and connect with services in their area. Additionally, Aunt Bertha is focusing its efforts into an upcoming webinar where leaders in the child and mental health space will be brought together. Participants of this webinar will learn about current and upcoming resources across the state of New Hampshire, hear from organizations that provide support, and will be able to discuss policies that support people with mental illness and their families. The links to this webinar, findhelp.org, and the Aunt Bertha website will be all posted in the description down below. Whether you're in the New Hampshire area or not, I love what they're doing at Aunt Bertha, and I really recommend you clicking and checking out those links. I know I said that I love what they're doing before, but I'll say it again because the work that they're doing is not only so important, but it's so well done. So shout out to everyone at Aunt Bertha who's doing such an amazing job. Now, before we get into the episode, you guys know the drill. If you're listening, please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform. Share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great day. Peace. We are live. Patrick, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So before we get too into anything and your research, I wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So what got you inspired to go into teaching music?
I am a musician, so I've played guitar, I've played music, several instruments for 25 years now. And one of the things I did over time was just teach friends first and then have students that I taught music to. And later I created some online courses for just learning guitar, learning finger picking, because that's the kind of guitar style I like the most. And over time, I guess one of the things that really drew me to music was just that I really enjoyed playing music. If you give me a guitar, I would then look at my watch and it's 3 hours later. It's like, oh no, where's the time gone?
Mm-hmm.
And it just basically is my way of meditating. So instead of not thinking about my electricity bill and what the neighbor is going to say tomorrow, if I play guitar, my brain stops, and I can really just unplug from the world. But I've been playing music for, like I said, 25 years and teaching students as an extension of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm always interested in people who can play an instrument because I used to play guitar when I was like very, very young, but it's just like, I wasn't very good. but when you listen to someone who's like very skilled at it, I just don't get it. Like the training that you must have to go through. What's that like?
Well, I think that there's a learning curve to learning anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is. And like I think about learning like something like Photoshop or learning DIY, like how do I, re-tile my bathroom floor? If you got the right person with you or the right teacher or the right materials, learning isn't about huge steps and frustration. Learning is about having constant small progress, and therefore every step of it is enjoyable. So you don't go, oh God, I've got to get through this terrible process to get better. Um, I think what happens over time, it's a bit like driving your car, right? When you start learning how to drive a car, first of all, you're aware that you're terrible and that you might well lose control of the car. Then you go into another stage where you actually think some of it becomes subconscious or automatic, you know. And at that point, it's quite dangerous because you think you're quite good at driving without concentrating, but not yet. It's only been a few months of driving, and then you become truly kind of automatic or subconscious about some of your physical actions. So you know this because sometimes you've been driving your car, cycling your bike, or whatever, and you're actually fully doing something else, whether that's having a conversation or even drinking from your cup or perish the thought, texting on your phone or whatever you're doing. You can literally do two things at once because a lot of these actions become subconscious. And I think that's what it's like as well when you learn an instrument. The more you play, the less you got to focus on, oh my, this finger has to go onto the third string at the sec. It becomes more automatic. And then at that point, you can actually think, okay, well, now what am I going to do? What do I want to do? Because, I've got enough control to give me some options. But one of the things that is most difficult about learning any instrument is at the start, if you try to do too much, you're going to sound terrible, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
take somebody who'd never played guitar before and I say, play these 4 chords, play these 6 chords, man, that's hard, right? You got these different fingerings, and then you're strumming with the other hand, and you're probably strumming too hard or too soft. And sometimes you don't want to strum all the strings, and you have to strum them evenly and in rhythm. And then at the other hand, you've got all these frettings that you're doing with your fretting hand. And as you change, some of them push down the wrong string or they touch off the other string or it's so even just to play a couple of chords takes a lot of actual automatic training. So when I start with students, I would always start with one chord. And we do as much as we can in one chord so that you get a feeling of mastery or you get a feeling of reward in those early days. So I think that's incumbent on teachers. If you're teaching someone something or helping them have a new habit or showing them, the bright side of the day, you have to kind of help them have some reward in those early sessions, right? I've got a 4-year-old daughter. If I want her to clean her room, I've got to work on that. I've got to help the first couple of times she does it go well, and then it becomes automatic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the thing you talk about is kind of like magic. When we understand something, it's not magic. But if somebody does something and you don't understand how it happened, that's magic.
Right.
It's magic because you don't understand. How did they do that? But actually, if you break it down, it's just a set of explainable things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one of the nice things about music. Music is in all of us. So if you attach electrodes to the brain, then depending on which parts of the brain are firing, a scientist can tell you which notes are being played. So in this absolute pitch sense, if I see these three, let's say electrode 1, electrode 2, electrode 3, which are, tied up to your brain, I
Mm-hmm.
can go, oh, well, someone just played A, C sharp, and G, right? That's
What?
how, yes, that's how wired it is into your brain. So
Wow.
there's this brilliant book called This Is Your Brain on Music, right? I've forgotten the author's name, but you can find it on Amazon or a local bookstore. We have got this absolute pitch wired into our brain, like I just described. What we don't have is relative pitch. So if I play 2 notes, for example, if I play an A and then a C sharp, that's a third apart, right? And if I play then an E, that's a major chord. Da 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 la. Our brain can't quite understand relative pitch in that way. Like what's a third higher? What's a fifth higher? You know. But if you play a note, and I'm looking at your brain, I'm like, oh, someone just played an F sharp. They can actually tell. That's how wired into your brain music is, which is remarkable. But what it means is that when you learn music, you're tapping into something inside of you, right?
Mm.
If you go to Africa and watch some of the percussion things that they're doing, or to India, some incredible percussion things that you would see there. These things are hardwired into our brains from years and years and years of, you know, genetic experience or whatever. It's just in us, which is why I think, for example, playing with another musician can be so, so much fun, right? It's because both of you are doing something that's kind of hardwired into you and sharing it. So yeah, so I think even though it might look really like, wow, what's this musician doing? They're so incredible. It is something you can learn. It is something that you can do. And it's like martial arts. You don't start martial arts to become the best martial artist in the world and defeat everyone and become world champion. I mean, maybe some people do, but most people do it because they want to have better fitness or self-confidence or whatever. And I think it's like that. There's always improvements you can make. And that's the goal, is to kind of always be enjoying yourself and pushing yourself rather than achieving some sort of endpoint mastery.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it's great. It's something that I'm really glad I picked up all those years ago.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the martial arts thing is so true. That's kind of like swimming because I was a swimmer, and you would have like the most athletic guys or girls like from other sports go like, ah, swimming's not a sport, and then they couldn't do a length because they've never done it before. So I was like, it's the same thing, and they haven't put the time in, they haven't put the processes in. It's a science almost for music, anyway.
Yeah, so good example because I can barely swim. I can maybe just about make the length of a pool. I went to swimming lessons when I was 7, and the instructor was just like, yeah, just swim here to me. And I was like, these instructions weren't enough. I couldn't do
Yeah.
it. I wanted my armbands back on. There was no breaking it down into something I could understand. The guy was, I mean, in fairness, he had whatever 20 kids that day, right? But I never learned then, and I think it's impacted my life. We've gone on holidays and done things, and I'm like, yeah, I can't go canoeing with you guys. I can't because I
Hmm.
can't swim very well. Now, okay, a lot of things I can do with a life jacket, right? You can go canoeing with a life jacket, but I've missed out on stuff because I didn't learn something back in the day. And yeah, it's like that. You can enrich your life or not based on certain things you pick up, for sure.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think everyone should at least learn how to swim. But also like just learning is so important at anything, learning anything. And we were actually going to get into that. So you've done research around how teaching music or learning music can
Yeah.
improve both your mental and physical well-being. How did you go about doing that research? Like what did you do to find that stuff?
Well, these days when people do research, what they typically do is they start Googling stuff.
Yeah.
Unlike when I was a young man in college. But it's yeah, there's lots of studies just online. The I suppose the scientific studies that are out there, the only thing is that they're often written for other scientists
Hmm.
rather than explained to just um, the general person on the street, right? So I had to kind of dig deeper and really read some things a few times before I kind of understood what was saying. And yeah, when you read a research article, then they've got references at the bottom, so you can read those as well, and you can kind of just dig around. And Google Scholar will tell you what's referenced a lot of times, so what's been cited, so you can see what's most popular. There's ways of kind of just diving in and finding out stuff. But let me share a few things with you because I found some interesting stuff.
Sweet.
Um, and yeah, so one that will probably come as no surprise. There's a 2011 study which basically concluded that patients suffering from depression who engaged in music therapy and music learning, saw lower levels of depression and anxiety. And this makes sense to me. If I'm struggling with something, I play guitar for half an hour, and then it just makes me feel like I've taken a bit of space from it. I feel a bit better. So I can understand that one. But definitely, playing music is a great way to focus on something else, and it has been proven to reduce anxiety, and depression. Another one, a 2014 study I found, um, maintained that playing a musical instrument has excellent cognitive and verbal benefits. So even a brief musical training session uh, basically has a result that changes the blood in the left hemisphere of the brain, and basically results in this rapid change in the cognitive mechanisms you use for music perception. So basically, what I'm saying here is that the same mechanisms that you use for language are used for music perception, which makes sense, right? If you're able to express yourself on a musical instrument, you would be, for me, it makes sense that you would be able to express yourself verbally better as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one was this idea of neuroplasticity. So brain plasticity, or neuroplasticity, is the ability of the brain to form new connections, or kind of, if you want to, rewire itself somehow. So without this ability, the brain would not be able to recover from injury like a stroke, as well. So this 2013 study that I found found that musicians had more gray matter than non-musicians. Um, or another way of putting it was, musical activities help to increase your brain plasticity, in both younger and older brains.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a good one. It's kind of an insurance policy, that one. It's like, if I'm going to have an injury in the future, well, if I've been playing music all my life, I will have a higher degree of brain plasticity or rewiring going on in the years before that. And then, yeah, the last one I'll mention is this ability to multitask. So you've probably noticed that the brain loses concentration when it's stressed. And that's usually when you're doing several things at once, right? So when you're hungry and then you can't find your glasses, and then like some external noise, like a car alarm goes off, and then you're doing something complicated, and then someone asks you an innocent question and you snap, right?
Yep.
It's like one or two of these things on their own are fine. And when they stack, then we lose the ability to function a bit. Particularly, I think people in senior years notice this a lot. And so learning a new musical instrument basically helps us to process multi-sensory information. Basically, we're usually doing several things at once when we're playing an instrument anyway. And so it's been proven to help us to multitask better. So yeah, so lots of stuff in there.
Wow, that's all. Yeah, that whole multitasking thing, I think it was a month ago. I was writing a quiz, but it was in my family room or in the kitchen, and my dad started making tea, so the kettle was going off, and then my sister came in and my phone was going off too, and my sister came in and she was just like, "Hey Harry, how's your day going?" And I was like, "Shut up!" And she was like, "Okay."
Yeah, that's how it goes. And there's a brilliant book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, which talks about the right hand side of the brain and the left hand side of the brain. And the types of thinking we do, type 1 and type 2, meaning conscious thinking and kind of subconscious thinking.
Hmm.
And basically what happens is exactly what, like we're discussing now. Like you don't get stressed when you're doing one or two things, but when a third and fourth and fifth stressor come along, eventually your brain just gives up. It just can't. It can't function. And they've done tests with this where they get people to, for example, sort cards into black and red cards into different piles, and they just keep stressing them until eventually the poor subjects just can't do it anymore. They're too stressed. But that's what happens when you add another one and another one and another one. We then sometimes snap, and then what we do is we kind of go, oh well, why, what's wrong with me? It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. You just had literally seven stressors. Anybody would have snapped, right? So that's that's a phenomenon that we all suffer from. But again, music is great because, again, it helps you to have multiple things going on at once, and become habituated to that. So it's a good thing.
I think a lot of people who don't understand music very well also don't take into account like the exercise portion of it. Like you just mentioned with the neuroplasticity and gaining more gray matter. Like it's a workout for your head. I think people just assume you play the guitar, you just know it, and then there's not really any benefit. You're just kind of spewing out sounds, but there's like a real mental benefit to it.
Yeah, there is. And And you know what a good example would be? Let's say that we wanted to get fit, right? The two of us wanted to just go to the gym more or something.
I'd love
Well,
to.
yeah, me too. They're all shut over here. But what you'll find is that some people would be runners. They love to run, right? They just love it. Running for them is awesome, right? It's like being outside, being in nature, fresh air, seeing stuff. For the other half of the population, running is the worst possible exercise. Right? It's so boring. It's so like they just hate running. They hate it, and so they might say, "Oh, I love playing football," or um, I love doing I don't know, high intensity training," or "I love golf," for example. So if you want to get fit, I would say pick something that you like, right? So if you love running, then like great, let's do that. And you can do a second thing too or a third thing too. If you love cycling, right? You could cycle all day. You're like, I'm going to lose some weight. Don't go, well, I love cycling, but my friend said running's better, and start running and you hate running. What's going to happen there? It's not going to stick, right?
Mhm.
So I think one of the great things about playing an instrument is that generally people like it. Like it's one of their favorite times of the day. And yes, your brain is doing a lot, and you're generally trying to play a few pieces or something that you're working on. You have to concentrate. You've got to, but it's enjoyable, and so people are getting this kind of exercise, brain exercise, but without the pain of doing something that they don't like. And I think that's where it kind of really becomes a winner. Is that if you can, particularly if you get started learning an instrument that you like, then you get all of these huge benefits. And sometimes people ask me, well, what instrument then is the best for all of this stuff, Patrick? My answer is honestly, it doesn't matter. Like these benefits aren't more on guitar than piano or more on oboe than violin. It's not about that. It doesn't matter the instrument. And generally, my advice is if you're thinking about learning a new instrument, ask yourself, what one have you always daydreamed of playing, right? Like
Mm.
imagine if you've always, you just every year you've got this daydream of playing the violin on stage or something. Violin, because you know what? If that's just been that kind of latent desire of yours, when you get one in your hand, you're going to be like, yes, right? Yes.
Right.
So sometimes people say piano is a great instrument to learn with, and I agree. Great instrument. Guitar is also fabulous as well for a number of reasons. Cheap to buy, easy to carry around, not too noisy for your neighbors. Um, Everyone has one. But ultimately, if you've got one in mind that you've always wanted to play instrument X, that's the one. Get that one, right? And then when you start learning it, part of you will be alive. Oh, I always wanted to X. And you know what? Now I'm doing it. That's an amazing feeling. So
Mm.
I always counsel people that way. And yeah, then of course you've got to put a bit of time and work in. But there's some stuff in life where we are improving and it doesn't feel like a chore. And there's other things where we're improving and it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
So, so can you kind of choose some stuff in your life which uh, give you a sense of mastery? Because the other thing is, imagine you're at your job. You got two people working in a job, and let's say Tom has got this job where he's learning new stuff every day, and let's say Mike has got a job. There's nothing new. There's literally learns nothing in the last year. It's the same repetitive stuff. Which person's going to have a happier life? It's going to be the first guy.
Hmm.
People who have learning in their lives generally are happy or happier. And that's, I think, who we are as humans. We always want to be learning something. Part of us just dies a little bit if we don't have any new experiences coming in or any learning going on. But that doesn't mean that you have to sign up for a new college degree, right? Like one of the things I've been doing a lot in lockdown is I've got my recipe books out. I'm cooking
Mm.
all of these recipes. Sometimes it goes badly wrong, by the way, but I won't get into that right now. But even for me, like that's learning. Sometimes it goes right, and I'm like, I did a for the first time, and yeah, it's great, and I think that's one of the things that I think with lockdown in particular, we have to have that. We have to be mastering something, I think, to be in a good place. And that can be anything, you know. You could be learning chess moves on your mobile phone. You could be learning a new language. It could be anything. But I think when we're learning something that we like, a change happens in us where we're just a little bit more alive and a little bit more
Hmm.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think one way we can look at it, and I know a lot of people do not like this comparison, but at the end of the day, if you believe in, religion, then that's okay. But at the end of the day, we're just biological creatures. And I worked at the zoo. I've worked at the zoo for a couple years, and if that animal, I'm not saying my zoo did this, but from videos I've seen, if that animal doesn't have any enrichment or anything to do in its cage, it goes bonkers. Like you
Mm.
can see videos of like the great apes in cages with nothing in it. They're just bashing their head on the wall, or bears swinging side to side because there's nothing to do. It's the same thing, especially in quarantine. Like you just mentioned, you need something. It doesn't have to be drastic, like you mentioned, the college degree. It could be baking bread. I know a lot of people who baked bread this quarantine, and
Yeah,
that's gave them something to do. It gave their brain an exercise, because if we're static and just staying in the same place constantly, you better have something to do in that constant place.
right. Yeah. And I think activity is one thing, and then learning is another thing. I know people who they like to clean the house when they're bored or stressed, and that's
Yeah.
great. Clean house, right?
Yeah, it's a bonus.
Other people like to, like, for example, make jam, and so like they had a, you go over to their house and they're like, wow, there's like 400 tins of jam. Tough,
Yeah.
tough month.
Yeah.
But if it's something new, like if you'd never made jam before, there's something extra there, and
Mm,
it doesn't matter. Listen, it doesn't matter if you've made good jam or bad jam. It doesn't matter if you've learned the first 50 chapters of the Italian course or the first one. It doesn't matter. It's that engagement with something new. I think that just helps us to feel like we are moving. And movement is key, because effectively movement is the opposite to being locked up and stationary.
mhm.
Even though we are locked up to some extent or have restrictions, um, sometimes when you have restrictions, it makes you do things you wouldn't normally do, right?
Right.
So if I said to you, you can never drink coffee and tea, you drink something else. If I said to you, um, you can never leave Toronto, you would find some new places in that city, right?
Mhm.
So, so there's a kind of inherent creativity that comes from being limited. Um, a previous music teacher of mine, he got me to play a solo once, but I was only allowed to play on the 1 and the 3 and. So it's like, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I was only allowed to play notes on those particular parts of the bar. So you think, okay, well, that's kind of weird. And I was doing it, and but what happened then was I was playing something that I would never normally have played,
Mhm.
right? And that's the thing about us as humans. We always say stuff, but it's stuff that we said before. We're just saying it again, you know? We always uh, do things. We go for a walk, or we go out for an evening, or we go for a holiday. We tend to just be creatures of habit. And if people force us to not continue those habits, which effectively the lockdown is doing, creativity can come from there. We can be pushed out of where we are. And of course, I hate many of the things that are going on right now. But you can choose a little bit whether you resent some of these things or regard them as, an opportunity to that. Like, that's the thing. I can't leave my house, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z that I've never done before, is an inherently positive thing. And I think turning a negative into a positive is a bit cheesy, but it is, it is we all have that possibility, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I knew this one girl swimmer who was a couple years older than me, but in her main event, she had kind of stayed in the same position in terms of time for like years. Like she was not improving, and it was her main event, so it was really frustrating. And then her coach made her train and compete a completely different event that she had never that she wasn't really good at, and she got to a point where she was decent. And then when she went back to her main event, she started dropping time because her brain got out of that habit and then started working on something else. It was weird. I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I was training backstroke for a breaststroke race." I was like, "What are you doing?" But it worked. It was so interesting.
Yeah, there's there's a lot to be said for just looking at some of the um, routines that we're in every day that don't serve us well. That's very difficult to do that, actually, because we don't tend to look at ourselves analytically. We tend to look at ourselves judgmentally.
Hmm.
Like I shouldn't have had that second piece of pie. Oh, I got up at 8. I said I was going to get up at 6. Bad me, bad Patrick.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we all do it, right? We all do it. But if we look at it and go, okay, well, actually this week I had 168 hours. What did I do? How did it go? Oh, well, 6 nights of the week I watched Netflix for like 3 hours. That's okay, by the way. I watched Netflix too, right? But
Hmm.
if you looked at it analytically and thought, okay, what's in there? What am I doing? What do I want to keep? What do I want to lose? Um, it's remarkably easy to find time. People say it's so hard to find time, and I do resonate with that. I've got a daughter. I've got a lot of things going on, but it is possible to find, let's call it 15 minutes a day to do something, whether that's learn Italian, play guitar, whatever you want to call it. And there's a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Hmm.
He talks about how to develop a new habit. And one of the things he talks about is habit stacking. So if you always do something, let's say at 10 o'clock every day, a classic one is you brush your teeth every morning, right? So if in your mind you linked every day, every morning I brush my teeth and then I do something else, that second habit kind of, the first one already happens because you're brushing your teeth. So the second one is easy, right? You just do teeth, guitar, for example. Bad example,
Right.
but you get my point. So there's ways of building habits into your routine that are really clever, and I think that's a good one, which is like stacking habits. So for example, let's say you finish your meal at lunchtime, you put your plate in the sink. There's a queue, right? So you could then say, okay, I do my 15 minutes of learning Spanish, right? So you link your habits,
Hmm.
and you can always find, I think, 15 minutes a day to do something. Anybody who says they haven't got 15 minutes a day, I'd have to say, come on, let's have a look. Let's open up this day and have a look at it. But again, I think what we sometimes need is just a way of looking at life. So I would say, and we mentioned this 15 minutes ago, I would say if you agree that someone with a learning in it, or a mastery in it, or doing something you're not able to do today, and learning that, if you agree that that's better than not that, then finding 15 minutes a day, if you believe that will be enough to eventually get you there, then there's no more objections left.
Hmm.
But because again, you can find a time. Sometimes you got to be creative. Sometimes if you try to do it in the evening before your kids have gone to bed, maybe that's not wise. If you try to do it right after work when you're at your tiredest, maybe that's not the right. You got to be smart. But I genuinely believe that we do all have a little bit of time for learning every day, whatever it
Hmm.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's like, exceptions where people are busy 24 hours of the day, but for the general public,
Yeah.
everyone's got at least 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to suggest that every single person out there. There are going to be some exceptional circumstances, of course,
Of
but
course.
I would say for the majority of people, they do have a little bit of time that's at their discern that they can
Hmm.
do something with. But yeah, it's it's a very interesting topic, and I think that one of the things that also we find is that sometimes people make kind of excuses that aren't possible. So like if I say to you, oh, I can't learn Italian because my neighbor is doing building work, so I won't be able to listen to the tape. It's like, okay, so buy headphones, right? Like, do you know what I mean? People rule themselves out a lot when it
Yeah.
comes to making change, and that's actually kind of your ego protecting you, right? It's like, if I try to do this thing that I'm not sure I'll succeed or not,
Hmm.
it would be safer for me not to try, and then I can't be hurt in some way, right? Or I can't be lower or failing. So to avoid that failure, I'll find a way to not really show up. It's a very common thing. Everybody suffers it from at least a bit of that, including me, right? Big time. But ultimately, yeah, I would say don't disqualify yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like don't say, oh, but I've got fat fingers. I can't play the piano. Oh, some people have got good rhythm. I don't. Like, what does that mean?
You can learn it.
Yeah. And actually, here's a good story. If you walk down the street, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, that is in perfect time. You can get the world's most accurate metronome, and it won't be as on time as you doing a natural movement like that. Left foot, right foot, as you walk down the road. It is perfect time. Now, how come that's perfect time? I mean, okay, maybe if you got like one really bad leg or something, right, then maybe that's not the case because of a physical reason. But I'm just assuming that both your legs have got the same level of health.
Yeah.
It's because we have rhythm built into us effectively. We have this sense of timing. You know, when a drummer plays an amazing drum solo and he's playing all this stuff and then he comes back in on a like bap and you're like, wow. Well, how do you know he was on time or off time? Like, how do you know that that's good timing and he just nailed it versus he's way off all over the place? And you kind of just know, right?
Yeah. I've never even thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but what's happening is you can't follow him with your brain. So when he comes back in on that perfect moment, you know, oh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you weren't able to follow him all along to going, oh yes, he's almost there. Yes, he's nearly there. He's gonna yes, he's still on perfect time. Oh, and he finished it, and he's no, it's just like and you're like, yeah, amazing. How do you know it was amazing? It's because internally your rhythm, your knowledge of what's on and off the beat is so more intelligent than you think, right? It's innate. So we all have rhythm. But to get back to that previous point, don't disqualify yourself. You know, I've seen students sometimes say to me, you know, I've got this reason for not doing it, this reason for not doing it. And a lot of the time they are theoretical rather than actual objections, right? They're theoretical. Don't disqualify yourself before you started.
Yeah.
But again, that's psychological, you know. I mean, we all do it.
Yeah, right. I'll take myself as an example. Like during the quarantine, I was like, actually no, way before the quarantine. So I stopped reading books like that weren't school textbooks or anything. I stopped reading books when I was like in grade 7 because I just assumed I would never have any more time to read a book. So from grade 7 to now, I haven't touched a book. And then once the pandemic happened, my parents were like, "Why don't you like start reading again?" Because I was so bored because my job hadn't started yet. And I was like, "Oh, I can't. I'm so busy." And then and then
Right? Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I'm so busy doing absolutely nothing." And then because I felt busy, and then I looked at my phone screen time for the first time in like I think it was 3 months into the pandemic. I looked at my screen time. It was 9.5 hours. And I was like, okay, can I not take one of these 9 hours and read a book? And then I did, and now I'm hooked again.
Yeah.
It's like how did I go like almost over a decade not reading? Because it's so fun.
Yeah, I I can understand though, you know, I can understand that this wasn't for you like, do I like reading or not? It was more like, am I in the habit of reading or not? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so a couple of sessions reading and you're like, how was it? Oh, I loved it. Then it's easy to continue. You've got this kind of momentum. But we do have to be deliberate sometimes, you know. If we just if we exercise no deliberateness, then yeah, we're on the phone all day, you know. Again, we're all capable of that for sure. But yeah, I think that's a really good one. And particularly if it was something like, so for you, reading is you just needed to block out the time, right? And then that was it. Right? That was it. And I remember when I used to do martial arts, our trainer used to say to us, we would say, what's the hardest part of getting to be a black belt? He's like, leaving the house every day with your gym bag an hour before the class.
Yes.
We're like, God, you're so wise and so brilliant at karate. We admire you. But he's true, right? Because if you know, once you've got out the door closes behind you. Like the rest is easy.
Yep.
Right. So in this case, you have put your phone on silent. You got a book from the shelf that you've always wanted to read. You sit down, in a comfortable couch. That's the hard part, right?
Yeah, the hard part.
The hard part, the hard part of reading a book at home. But okay, to take another example, if somebody said, okay, it's I've come home, I've eaten, job's over, I'm gonna put my plates and forks into the sink. Now I'm gonna go over to the chair, I'm gonna open up the guitar case, right? I'm gonna sit in this chair and put the guitar in my lap. That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? It's not the actual thing. In the Italian case, it's okay. So I'm going to go and get my Italian. I was on lesson 2. So I'm going to put in lesson 3. I'm going to press play on my phone or whatever. That's the hard part, right? It's not the thing. It's the segue from where you say, okay, I now begin activity X. That is the hard part. He was right. The hardest part about becoming a black belt is leaving the house with your gym bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hardest every morning, because for swimming I would wake up at like 4 o'clock, 4:15 to go swim, and I would always, well, not always, because I had a girlfriend at the time, but when I wasn't with her, I would jump out of bed, because I knew that that would be the hardest part, would be to get out of bed and out the door. So I tried to jump out as fast as I could out of bed, because if I took my time, I'd be like, ooh, I could stay though. I'll make up for it later. And that's just not a thing. Little side note, which kind of martial arts did you do?
It was just Shotokan karate, like
Okay.
karate, kind of straight up karate.
Yeah.
I did it for 4 years. Yeah.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just started Muay Thai. I'm like 3 months in.
Okay. You guys are vicious.
You guys, they're vicious. I'm just learning. I'm looking at around like these guys are kicking the bag like they don't have feeling in their shin.
Yeah.
It's so worn down, and I'm like,
Don't worry. They'll remove that instinct from you. You'll be there in no time.
oh, thank God.
Destroying bags. Yeah, you guys are really vicious. But it's true, right? When you leave the house with your gym bag, that's the hard part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's the really core part. What I always say to students is, look, 15 minutes a day, because you've got this compounding. Let's just take you, Harry. If you spent 15 minutes every single day on guitar for a year, like how good do you reckon you'd be at the end of the year? Well, you might not be, playing Wembley Stadium, but you'd be able to play, like you would, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's about just picking it up and or doing it. And so we have this kind of cognitive dissonance, where we think about something like, oh, imagine being really good at playing guitar, for example, just for one example. And we think that's so hard. That is so, the guys who play like that, they're so lucky. They're so talented. They've got this natural ability. By the way, assumption, right? Some true, maybe some true, not true, maybe. But honestly, if you spent 15 minutes every day for a year, you would be well able to play that instrument.
Mm-hmm.
You would, so I think that we often sometimes just assume that to be good at something is going to take, years. It's not true. Like if you spent 50 minutes every day learning Italian, after like 5-6 months, you'd be able to talk to an Italian person, right? You might not be brilliant at the language, but that adds up real fast. And also doing something kind of every day, or most days at least, when you get into this habit, it becomes a ritual, which is something else, because then you're going to do it, usually at this certain time. It then has a different relationship with you, where you go, okay, now I know I'm going to X and then Y. So therefore, it's almost like going into a room. I go in here to do this, and rituals are very kind of powerful in that sense, because they help us to frame the world around us, if that makes sense. I've got X and Y and Z that I do every Sunday. Well, great, right? I don't have to think on Saturday, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? Right? It's like, this is, keeps you young.
Right.
And also it keeps you engaging with things. So you have got a lifelong relationship now with guitar or Italian or mastering the recipes of the world or whatever it is, as opposed to, I did this once for a little bit and then I stopped. It changes your relationship to it. So yeah, 15 minutes a day is what I recommend to students. Actually, what I do is I say to them, okay, I want you to play for 15 minutes. Then put your guitar down, put it back in its case or stand, go and get a glass of water. If you want to play more, you can. First of all, I'm not there. I'm not going to know. So do it. But if you put it down and pick it back up, then you've kind of done your 15 minutes. That's done. Whether you pick it up or not doesn't matter. You did your 15 minutes. Now, of course, if you pick it up and play for another hour, that's fine. But if you don't have that break point, then you play for 40 minutes. Then tomorrow you're going to be like, oh, I played for 40 minutes. I don't have 40 minutes today, so I'm not going to pick it up at all. That's the kind of mental shortcut thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So this ability to put stuff into routine, I think is important. I say 15 minutes, put it down, right? Pick it up again if you want to. I'm not there. I'll never know. And again, I feel like even that little thing is so important. So if you're having a tough lockdown, I think one of the things you can do is learn something new, right? Choose something you've always wanted to learn, be good at, go for it. Another thing you can do is just clean something or take care of or maintain something in your house. Clean out your sock drawer, clean the shelves under the sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Iron all your shirts. You might be like, oh, come on. How does that make it? It does make a difference because it keeps you from being kind of slothy and more on top of things, in control, improving little bits and pieces as you go. So I think in the current environment with COVID and with everything else, this can be very important. And then on top of that, you've got kind of the brain and health benefits that we spoke about at the start as well. So I would always say to someone, if you've got no other learning in your life, or you've always wanted to kind of be a musician or play music, then 15 minutes. Just find the place where you stack your habit and just do it. That's as simple as it is.
Mm-hmm. It's so like when you're looking at a pro, for anything, but let's take music as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at a pro guitar player, it's so much easier to go, I'll never get there, than to go, 15 minutes a day and I'll be building a bass.
Exactly. But so I'll take out my guitar here.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Live concert,
live streaming. I get paid for this, right? You guys.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'll take my mic out of the way. So when I start with students, I just say, look, let's play a chord here, G chord. And we start here. And, the fingers each have a string over here. So I'm like, okay, let's just, and, that's all there is to it, right? So and I stay in that one chord for as long as I can. I get people to say, okay, try and play it happy. Try and play it sad. Whatever, right? So, we play around. But then even within this, just with one chord, you can do a lot of things, It's just one chord. So right now, if I just play that at the start, and you'd be like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's just one chord, and I'm just playing these strings really slowly. Anybody can do that, It's just one chord here. This hand is doing nothing, and this other hand is just plucking the strings. Depending on which string it is, it's got its finger or thumb. And then, once you've learned that, you can go fast. is not hard. You know, that's what I'm
Man.
trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
Like, there's just a little bit of which string are you playing, and you get someone to start off by just playing it slowly. And then you speed it up. It's like the magic thing we talked about before. So
Mhm.
if you know what it is, it's kind of makes sense. I can hear someone playing that. I'm like, I know what they're doing. If you don't understand it, it sounds like, you know, magic. But yeah. And actually, I take a kind of a contrary stance here. Most people would have you playing all the chords and changing, you know? I don't think so. I find that people get a lot more musical reward when I push them. Like you said, that cross swimmer learning
Mhm.
breaststroke. When I say to people, okay, we're going to start with finger picking, they're like, I don't know any chords yet. I'm like, I don't care. Here's one. Right, now let's start finger picking. By the end of the lesson, they're like, I love this. You know, so you really do want to get people excited, you know, change their state from, oh, I've always dreamt of playing the guitar, but other people have got better rhythm and I've got fat fingers, to, oh, I really love this. That's just being a good teacher, really, right? So, you know, when you've got a good instructor, whether it's driving instructor or swimming instructor, they just guide you, and all of a sudden you feel like you're able to do stuff.
Mhm.
That's all it is. But I think what's definitely true is, for anybody who's got a passion for learning an instrument, it's possible, right? You don't have to play Royal Albert Hall. You can get to a level of proficiency in 3 to 6 months if you just put aside that 50 minutes a day. And you know, we talked about brain benefits and health benefits, and we talked about all of that, but also you've got these social benefits. So even if, like, you know, let's say you're calling a relative or a parent, and they've got nothing going on, you know, it's like a little bit sad to talk to them. You know, you're like, hey, what, any news? It's very hard to have news during COVID. You know,
Yeah.
what like what can I tell you? But imagine if they said, oh yeah, I'm learning Italian, or I'm learning, insert anything, right? You'd be like, that's, what would your reaction be? You'd
It's
be like,
awesome.
that's awesome. That's, yeah. So something social just happened there, right? I had something to tell you. I'm learning Italian, or I did something. So I think that this is another thing that's related to the learning. If we're learning something, we're more interesting to talk to. You
Right.
know, I learned guitar. My fingers are, you know, sore now. You know, or, oh, I was learning guitar, and yeah, I played for an hour, or whatever. Right. Um, you could. I think it's just important for people, if they're doing a lot of Skyping or Zooming or whatever, that they have a positive something to share. You know,
Mhm.
not to impress other people. It's not about that at all. It's just having some sort of interesting material in our lives. You know, it's possible that we just have a little bit of time to take on something small, little mini challenge. Um, because then when we're talking to other people, again, it gives us stuff to talk about, because we have a little bit less than before. So I noticed that psychological benefit as well. So my students are like, yeah, I really enjoyed telling my granddaughter I was learning guitar. She's like, what? You know, I was like, yes, great, good. You know, that's really nice. And again, it's not about other people. It's about you and your happiness.
Yeah.
But I think it's a nice, um, let's call it a fringe benefit. That, again, if you're a bit isolated, right, and you know, your family calls you and you're like, oh, I'm learning Italian and I'm doing, you know, learning guitar. People, you know, people get a lot of energy out of this, you know, and I think that's the caring thing. They're just happy to see that you're surviving this tough period, and, or, you know, doing well. Um, but yeah, I sell courses online, so I put courses online maybe 5 years ago. I've sold like 20,000 courses in that time. And a huge amount of people reaching out to me are retired people. And it makes sense, because I think they've got time on their hands. What's really interesting these days is that people tend to approach retirement now much more strategically. Whereas I think my mom and dad, like, one day they just didn't go to work. People are now thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to fill up all this time. What do I put in there? like 5-10 years in advance, which is wonderful, by the way. I'm really delighted to see that. But yeah, so I've got a lot of retired students of mine who retired from their jobs. I got an email a couple of weeks ago from a guy called Charles. He's like, yeah, I'm a happy and healthy 84-year-old. My favorite musics are, gypsy jazz, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, it's like good for you. And I think if I can imagine being his great granddaughter or something, what am I going first? One of the first things I'm going to ask him on the call. So, how's guitar playing, right? Or learn any new songs, or
Right.
so I think it's not. I think it's nice that we have. Or if you were training, swimming's a bad example. If you're training for a swimming race, right? Your granddad could ask you, so how's the swimming going? So I just think it's good for us to have something that that people know we're working hard at, because it makes social connection easier as well.
Yeah. I agree. That the fact that you have so many retired students just kind of proves this old saying is wrong. The whole like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because you got old people learning the guitar. I think some people are afraid of growing older because they're like, oh, I got to learn everything now. Like I guess that's kind of built in with like the school system almost.
Yeah, I would say that even if you couldn't teach a dog new tricks, I think an old dog can teach themselves anything,
Right.
right? Like, yeah, it's very hard to teach someone else something they don't want to learn. That's and we remember being at school. There were some classes we just didn't want to be in.
Oh
God
my
bless
God.
us. God bless that teacher. But yeah, I mean, I see students, guitar students, retired, playing to a high level, right? It's not an ageist thing, definitely. But again, I think that's why I think maybe like finger picking guitar is a favorite for people who are, well, of all ages, for sure, right? For sure, all ages. But I think a lot of older people, they like all types of music, but definitely kind of finger style, kind of Paul Simon kind of feel, Chet Atkins. That's a very kind of popular guitar style among retired people, I think. Yeah, but I've seen the proof. I've got videos somewhere of students have sent me that what they're playing, and yeah, these old dogs are teaching themselves a lot of new tricks for sure. But I think it's all in the mind space of the individual. Right? Your age is going to be a factor of how you feel. If you feel young, then I think you'll basically have a learning in your heart, right? You'll have a desire for new experiences, to go new places, to try new things. That doesn't diminish with age. That's, yeah. I'm with you on that one. I'm not a big fan of that phrase either.
I have good friends who are worried about getting old because they just think that they'll never do anything new. Like that's a fear in their head that they have to do everything new now and then carry it with them forever.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Don't burst their bubble then, because they're obviously
No,
active.
I don't.
They're active and doing everything. This is great.
Oh yeah, for now, yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, being worried about the future is kind of crazy, because we can't solve it. We can't solve 10 years time. I can't fix what might happen to me in 10 years. I can't do anything about it. I can do things now, like I can take care of my health today, but I can't worry about what if questions in 20 years time. I can't,
right.
I can't definitively solve those. But I think you can do a lot today to make the future better tomorrow. And I think that's a good way to look at it. We've got longer lifespans now, and I don't have exact numbers, but we live longer and we live better quality of life. So the quality of life we'll have at age 75 typically is much better than it was 20 years ago, when, we probably wouldn't have been in great health at that age.
Yeah.
On average. So not only do we live longer, but we live better quality of years at older years. So I would be an optimist. I would say if you're retiring, you could have 30 or 40 years left potentially of learning, And actually, the more you learn, the more new experiences you have, the more likely you are to live longer, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of retired students, that's for sure. And yeah, I really enjoy when I send a newsletter and I'm like, hey, tell me if you're playing something or what you're listening to, what you're playing. I get people sharing it with me, and I love when I get those stories or videos. People saying, oh, I'm 84 and I'm 75, and I really enjoy that because I'm like, great, I love to see it. But yeah, long may it continue.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, man. I just want to say, like, when you played that guitar, it kind of, I don't know, it like being in this pandemic for so long, you kind of take or you kind of forget the small things, and it just kind of took me back to like when I would go to like open mics or like go to a cafe or something and someone would be playing, and you miss that. It's like it's different than listening through your headphones. I think listening through your headphones is great. Like, I'm a huge fan of music, but there's something to be said about being in person and listening to someone actually play an instrument as opposed to like a computer board doing it.
Yeah, I miss music too. I miss gigs, and I miss
Mm,
being out there. I miss playing with other musicians. I miss a lot of things. Um, it's yeah, it's definitely something I can't wait to get back into. But again, restrictions can have silver linings. So all the time that I can't um, be out there playing with other musicians, I'm practicing my own stuff here. I'm writing things, and I'm spending more time on my courses and teaching. So there's always silver linings. But yeah, I would love to go to a gig tonight. I'd love it.
hmm
And play, yeah, live music is a it's just amazing. It's amazing again. It's just because we've got music inside of us. We've 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 got, like, how many people have ever said to you before, oh, do you like music? No, I hate all music. I hate every type of music. There's not one song I don't like. Nobody's ever said that to me. Nobody.
Yeah, no, I've never
No,
heard anyone say that.
I've never heard anyone say that. Um, it, or even if someone said that, I bet you there's a song out there. If it came on the radio, they'd be tapping their foot.
hmm
So it's in all of us, and I think that's what's so wonderful and universal about music, is that we can understand it on a brain level and on a feeling level. And when we hear it, it can make us feel different. Like you're driving in your car, it's a beautiful day, the window is down, you've got some music on. That's not the same drive without music, right? You
hmm
know, um, or you're having cocktails with someone or something on a rooftop bar, and a really cool dance song comes on. That's or you're walking through the center of a city and someone's playing a violin. There's so many magical moments out there that we have because of music, and that's why I think that we all have a love for it. There's something deep in us that resonates when we hear music. So hopefully gigs will be back soon, and
Yeah.
yeah, I can't wait. In the meantime, I'm going to work on my playing. I'm going to work on creating more things for other people, and I'm going to use my time as wisely as I can. But yeah, once music starts, I'm back. I'm back out there.
Yep, yep. I love that, man. This might be a tall order, but do you think like sending us off with a song would be would be
Yeah, we can
okay?
do that. Yeah, we can do that. One thing I can mention before we go is that I put a page on my website, um,
hmm
learnfingerpicking.com/podcast. So if anybody wants to get all of the articles that I mentioned before, there's links to those. And there's a bit of a discount, 50% discount if you want to do a beginning fingerpicking course. So learnfingerpicking.com/podcast if you want to check out those things.
Do you
And
do you have any like social media or
I do, but I tend to just send people to the website,
okay.
because I'm not regular on social media.
Yeah, good for you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I try to. I try to be good, but also, there's free lessons and everything on the site. That's, there's loads of good stuff there.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll put that link down below.
Yeah, so I'll play something. We can play it out. And Harry, it was a pleasure to talk. Thanks very much. We are many miles away, but it was like we were in the same room for a while, which is really cool.
I know. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
And look, we'll talk soon again. Okay.
Yes, sir. We'll be in touch.
Yay!
Amazing, man. Thank you. That was awesome. And to all my viewers, I will see you guys next time.